Okay, so I was going to lead you into the crash afterwards, because you're very
Right.
open about it in the book. You're very, very open about it.
Absolutely.
You lay it all out there.
Which I think is important.
So you had a pretty bad crash. You weren't yourself for like
No,
9 months, I think you said.
better part of a year. Yeah. And so, and a lot of people warned me and they're like, hold on to your hat. And, I was like, oh no, I've had lows before after races, but nothing that good quality time with your friends and playing with your kids and, like maybe a vacation or something can't cure. But, the high of coming into Victoria and that feeling was mirrored, on the other side. As good as I felt equally as low. And it probably started about 2.5 months after the run across Canada. And I was talking to Aaron. I was talking to my sports psychologist every week. And I was really spending a lot of time with friends and family and doing all the right things, everything right on paper. But then you just started not feeling right, and you started feeling sad, and you started feeling, the best word I could use is empty, as opposed to full, because I felt really full running into Victoria that day. And then you felt more empty. And then you started clawing at people, at situations, at anything that would make you feel not shitty. And you started becoming a nuisance upon your family. You started becoming a terrible friend that friends wouldn't call back. You started being a grumpy asshole. And then the feelings get even worse. And ultimately, I remember coming home one day, and I was home alone. Lana Ray was in Toronto on business, and the kids weren't around. And I sat there in my vehicle just crying, like bawling. And because that level of lowness, you want to escape. You're like, anything, get me out of here right now. Like, I need to fix this. And I looked at the tire swing hanging from a long rope on my tree in the front yard, and I thought, I know exactly where the ladder is. And you're like, holy shit. I didn't just think that, did I? And in fact, it came with this feeling of glee, like that things were going to be remedied here very quickly, right? So I immediately called Lana Ray and I said, I'm making my way to the hospital, and I'm admitting myself because I shouldn't be thinking these things. And thank God I did. But that was the beginning of the hardest, about 9 months to a year of my life. It was Lana Ray's hardest time of her life as well, too. My kids, family. I've got so many family and friends who still won't call because I was an asshole. And I'm not an asshole. Like, I'm honestly, I'm really actually a pretty reasonable guy. I don't know who the hell that was. But to my friends who are listening to this, and to, strangers or anybody who's reaching out or who kind of figured things out, and even though I was being mean, they were still there. I want to thank them, because that means more to me than they'll ever know. And I'm sorry for everything I did and said and behaved. And if it takes my entire life, to apologize and to make amends, I'll take it. But yeah, it's something that endurance athletes don't talk about. I think it's simply because we want to be seen as being the opposite of that. That's weak. But it's also so totally normal. And we need to be there for one another. And we can't just stand there with our platitudes and say, no, nothing ever hurts me. Read my book and you come to realize very quickly, everything hurts me, just like you guys, just like all the listeners. Like, we all hurt. You just, pay attention to certain things and don't pay attention to certain things. But I think it's an important conversation. People are taking their lives out there and they're not asking for help. And it's rather heartbreaking. And I didn't think I would be ever that person that would ever consider it. And I considered it far more than I would like to be than I would like.
Well, thanks for sharing that. Obviously, if there's any listeners that are seek help, if you guys, there's no shame in seeking help. Please. For sure.
Yeah.
Charlie, do you want to follow up here?
No, I'm just processing. I mean, I think we bring it up a lot on our show. I mean, it's not Crossing Canada, obviously, but we do talk about it a lot, how the crash after affects us significantly. So, but I think that's the thing that people don't talk enough is that I think everyone's aware of it. Like everyone who's ever had these knows about it, but it's like we don't talk about it as much as we should.
Well, we have the greatest community out there. I mean, the running community, and hey, I'm biased, but the running community is the best community out there.
Absolutely.
We all support one another with the hurrahs and the PBs and the Boston Standard qualifying times and the, big finishes. Like we all celebrate one another's successes. And I think it's about time that we take some of that attention and draw that towards those who are currently struggling, because hey, I got a ton of attention when I win, and when I lose, people go away. But that's likely the time that we need one another the most.
Maybe a simple thing to do would be to just, if you see someone who's clearly on a high with accomplishing something like a BQ qualifier or something, diarize to check in with them a week or two later, just to see how they're doing, or post a comment on their run. Hey, how are you feeling today?
Absolutely. Yeah. And be honest, like, let me know. And you even bring up stories about yourself, like the lows after the highs. And the more often that we can share, because I think oftentimes people go, no, nobody else is feeling like this. And I think that's one of the problems, is we don't want to burden one another with all of our crap. Hey, we don't mind burdening one another with walking around with the Boston Marathon jacket. Hey, let's talk about that. But nobody says, hey, like, can we talk about mental health and the fact that I'm really struggling?
There was a stretch, Dave. There's a stretch, Dave, where Charlie would somehow sneak it into every conversation that he had. Oh, just came back from Boston. Oh, just did the Boston Marathon last weekend. Yeah. Oh, my bumper sticker? Yeah, no, I did the Boston Marathon. Have you heard of it? Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Of course.
And we sorry, I think I interrupted you, but I just wanted, I value this piece of the conversation. It's not something that I always joke. I joke about myself as a bipolar runner. I get really high, and maybe everyone gets like this. I don't know. I get really high when things are going well, and when my runs are going well, my build is going well, and when I'm accomplishing like 100 milers, and then I talk about it on this podcast, how I get low as well.
Absolutely. You and everybody else. And you know what? It's worth the conversation, because the consequence is dire. Yeah. The consequence is absolutely dire.
Yeah.